Die herrliche Zeit, die wir im gastlichen Hause verlebten, wird immer mit zu unseren schönsten Urlaubserinnerungen gehören. Im Osten steht unser Morgen. Herzlichen Dank für eure nationalsozialistische Gastfreundschaft. Heil Hitler.
For both of you, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how Jonathan first proposed this project to you, how he described it, how he described how it looked, how it was going to look, how it was going to sound, basically what we saw here tonight.
I had to do a self-tape to describe myself and to say why I did become an actor without knowing the project, without knowing the potential role, only knowing it's for a new project of Jonathan Glazer. And I decided to do it in German because it felt more natural. And I think this was the door opener to meet John and his longtime friend and producer Jim Wilson in a pub in London. And then John shares with me his vision, his thoughts, the potential role, the script, and some rare photographs of the Hess family. And I didn't know the story of this family, that they lived so close to the camp with a swimming pool, with a garden, and with their kids. And then I had a traditional casting with my lovely colleague Sandra. And after that, Jonathan asked me, it was like a marriage proposal, do you want to be a part of my film? And I said immediately yes, because I think his vision, it makes sense, and it was so, I was so curious to work with him and to be a part of his vision.
Johnny, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your first impressions.
Well, I've known Jonathan for kind of almost 3 decades, and so when he first spoke to me about the film, we went for a coffee near his house, and he was basically telling me that he was writing a script, and sound was going to be very key in providing an extraordinary stark contrast between what you see and what you hear, and that ultimately, really, I needed to begin doing some research and understanding everything about the sounds that would have been heard at that place and time, and kind of how they would have been heard. So it was, I think he never asked me if I would do it, because I've sort of have worked with him for many years. But it was do your research was his opening line to me.
Speaking of research, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about Christian approaching what your sort of reaction. You put yourself on self-tape. You didn't know what it was going to be for. What your reaction when he proposed playing Rudolf Haas, and how you sort of started to approach playing this man?
For me, it was the most important thing were the conversations I had with Jonathan and with Sandra together. We had a lot of conversations. We had to postpone the filming because of the COVID situation for 1 year, and we had more time for preparation things. And we had a lot of conversations about the script, the character, because John wants to connect our, not the whole biography, but things. For example, there was in the first script the scene, Rudolf is drunk, and I was never drunk in my life. And then Jonathan decided to cut the scene out and to change it with another scene. And we were searching together, because Jonathan was from the beginning very transparent to us with his vision, what he's searching for, and these conversations for me were the most important part. I read his biography. I heard his voice, his original voice. I listened to his voice from the Nuremberg trial. You can hear the voice at YouTube, but you hear a voice from a prisoner, not from a commandant in his prime. But it was important for me to create this character. And then I had to do some technical things. I had to learn horseback riding. I had a personal trainer because I had to lose weight for the summer and gain weight for the winter, and then lose weight again. And it's my body is a little bit out of control now. But it's a small detail, but it was important for me. It was more to dive into the darkness of this character from the outside, and the method we shot the movie. We talk later about that. That was helpful too, to create this character, to be spontaneous and sometimes not knowing too much about him, more to figure it out in normal, ordinary situations.
Well, I mean, can you, as you brought up, can you talk a little bit about, 'cause for the audience who probably doesn't know, how Jonathan set up the cameras, how he, and how you shot this movie, which is very unique and very original, and Johnnie also, you know, how that worked from your end in terms of collecting that sound?
We filmed the movie with sometimes 10 cameras simultaneously, and Jonathan described it in the beginning. It's like Big Brother in a Nazi house, and it's the thing that we observing the characters, we following the characters, we're looking through a window and not following like in a normal movie with a with a normal camera system. And we had these different cameras on different angles in different rooms. Sometimes we shot in 2 or 3 rooms simultaneously. Sometimes we can hear our colleagues in the other room, and that was really amazing. And every time, every day, the set was prepared, and we had no rehearsals. We started immediately without a break and without technical interruptions. And we haven't seen technicians or people from the set on the set because they were hidden. The focus puller from the camera were in the basement of the house, and Jonathan and his team were next to the set in a container with 10 monitors, and Jonathan heard in one ear the original sound and the other ear the translator, because he tried to learn German, but it's a difficult language, and Jonathan stopped immediately, but he had a good feeling for the language. He understands us, and we trust him a lot because he felt the right tone, or that was really amazing. And he described it after a take. It's all one takes, and then and we had the freedom to be spontaneous, and that is what I meant when I said it's sometimes you read a biography and you know the psychological things from the character, but here sometimes we had 1 or 2 scenes per day, and we know, okay, now today we have a birthday party, or we have a dinner, or and then we figure it out together. He had a phenomenal script, but he invites us to figure it out, to search for the truth, and not act in a normal way. More, we had all the time in the world, sometimes to improvise, and sometimes improvisation helps us to dive into the scenes written in the script. And that was really amazing. And after that, he describes some things, sometimes not. Sometimes someone was yelling cut, and sometimes not. And then we had a shot for 1.5 hours, and we had the freedom to decide, okay, we try it again. Or now, for example, at the dinner, we eat, and in this moment, I start with the lines again, and that was really amazing to shoot in this way.
Johnnie, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about sort of, from your team's perspective, how you figured out how to capture sound in that house when you have multiple cameras moving at once and multiple scenes acting out at the same time.
Yeah, I think as Christian says, Jonathan's whole thing is to create an environment where it's as close as possible to documentary and what actually happened, and allow the actors to be as free as possible, to not have the incumbents of technical people hanging out, and particularly the children who might even be more put off. And so certainly, there were hidden microphones. There was no sort of person standing there with a boom mic or anything. It was very much planning out where people would be in the room before a take, and moving the microphones to get to the right position. I think it's interesting that although there would have been many takes done on a particular scene, they were never particularly edited between the takes. Every shot in the film, every scene was one take, and that's what kind of gives it the very real and authentic feel that we were cutting between camera positions rather than different performances or anything. And as far as the microphones go, as you say, Christian, there was very much everything was happening at the same time. So there really would be the children playing outside when Rudolph was lying on his sofa in the office. There was the radio was on, and you could hear you could hear in the kitchen the women talking, and you could hear the baby crying, and you could hear the children outside, and those are all things that were actually recorded at the time. And so the process of mixing that was very much to choose what existed, and that was that was very much to do with the creation of the family drama, which was, as John had described it to me, that really we must create and complete this extraordinary film and presentation of what happened there, and then at a later stage in post-production introduce this other layer of sound which they're ignoring, basically.
Well, thank you so much for being here, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for listening.